The desperate plea General Thule's voice crackled over the comms, desperation seeping through every word. "Philip, this is General Thule. Please keep the human fleet out of this war. You're our only hope." The transmission echoed in the silent room where Philip Terrence, a seasoned human diplomat, sat, his mind racing. Memories of his friendship with Thule surfaced, recalling the time when the two had bonded over a shared love for an obscure alien sport during tense trade negotiations years ago. Now the stakes were infinitely higher. The Federation had trusted Philip to maintain neutrality, to keep the fragile peace. But Thule's plea, cutting through the formalities, struck him to his core. The loyalty he felt towards his old friend warred with his duty to the Federation. Philip knew of the classified intelligence reports about Zaria, a planet rumored to house an ancient alien weapon powerful enough to devastate entire star systems. The thought of such a weapon falling into the wrong hands was terrifying. His decision was made in an instant. Against direct orders, Philip arranged for an unmarked ship, setting a course for the war-torn planet. As he neared the planet's atmosphere, the sight that greeted him was horrifying. A once thriving colony reduced to smoldering ruins. The acrid smell of smoke and burning debris filled the cockpit as Philip keyed into his comms. "Commander Zara, this is Philip Terrence, human diplomat. I come at the request of General Thule. He is my friend. I'm here to help in any way I can." There was a long pause before a guarded voice responded, "You have landing coordinates. I'll take you to the General, but betray us and I'll tear you apart myself, human." The transmission ended with a curt click, leaving Philip alone with his thoughts as his ship descended into the chaos below. The shuttle touched down on a hidden landing pad, concealed within a ravine. As Philip disembarked, the extent of the destruction became more apparent. The ground was littered with debris, and the distant sounds of battle echoed through the air. Commander Zara, a towering alien with a plasma rifle slung across her back, was there to meet him, her expression unreadable. Without a word, she led him through the labyrinthine base, finally bringing him to General Thule. Thule, despite his exhaustion and injuries, managed a weak smile when he saw Philip. "I'm glad you came, my friend," he said, his voice heavy with the burden of leadership. "But the situation is more dire than I can express." Philip nodded, his face grim. "Tell me everything, Thule. We'll find a way to stop this madness before it's too late." Thule activated a holotable which flared to life, casting ghostly images across the room. The display showed a towering structure on Zaria, one that defied the very laws of physics. "This," Thule began, his voice low, "is the Temple of the Firstborn. Inside lies a weapon that could end this war in a single, terrible blow." Philip studied the structure, recognizing the design from the intel reports. "Then we must get to it first. Tell me the plan." As Thule began outlining the mission, Philip couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in his gut. The fate of millions, perhaps billions, depended on the success of their mission, and in the back of his mind, he wondered if even he could live with the consequences of what they might find. Into the depths, the shuttle set down 2 clicks from the Temple of the Firstborn, its engines cutting off in the cold silence of the ravine. "This is as close as we can get without risking detection," Thule rumbled, his claws dancing over the controls. Philip nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. The temple loomed in the distance, its twisted spires piercing the sky like the bones of some ancient beast. As they disembarked, Philip's boots crunched on the gravel beneath his feet, the acrid stench of plasma burns filling his nostrils. Thule led the way, his scaled form blending with the shadows as they approached the temple. The structure defied logic, its alien geometry seeming to twist and bend in ways that defied the laws of physics. "Stay alert," Thule warned as they reached the temple's outer perimeter. The Firstborn were masters of deception and death. Philip's mind raced as he scanned the temple's facade. His gaze locked onto a series of glyphs etched into the stone. "There," he pointed. "Those symbols, they're similar to the trade markings used in the Outer Rim. If I'm reading them right, they mark a hidden entrance." He approached the wall, careful to avoid triggering any traps. His fingers traced the alien script, and with a soft click, a hidden panel slid open, revealing a crystalline lattice of circuitry. "Let's hope the rest of this place is as easy to crack," Philip muttered, allowing himself a tight smile. Their small team moved cautiously through the temple's corridors, the air thick with the scent of ancient decay. Philip's heart pounded in his chest as they neared the coordinates of the vault where the weapon was rumored to be hidden. But just as they rounded a corner, a bone-chilling roar echoed through the halls, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. "Crash!" Thule hissed, his eyes wide with recognition and fear. "It's the end of the line, traitors!" Chaos erupted as plasma bolts sizzled through the air. Philip and Thule dove for cover, but the confined space made it difficult to maneuver. Outnumbered and outgunned, Philip's mind raced as he analyzed the temple's architecture. He noticed a series of support pillars and, with a flash of insight, realized they could use them to their advantage. "Thule, the pillars," Philip shouted over the din of battle. Understanding flashed in the general's eyes, and he nodded. The two split up, drawing fire and maneuvering their attackers into position. At Philip's signal, they fired simultaneously at specific points on the pillars. The chamber groaned as ancient stone shifted and cracked. Crush roared in fury as the ceiling collapsed, burying him and his soldiers under tons of rubble. With the immediate threat neutralized, Philip rushed to Thule's side, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Thule nodded, though his expression remained grim. "The vault is ahead, but I fear what lies within." Together they moved toward the heart of the temple, the sense of impending doom growing with every step. Philip had made a promise to his friend, and he intended to keep it, no matter the cost. The hidden vault, with every step, the temperature seemed to drop, and the light dimmed as Philip and Thule ventured deeper into the temple. The air grew heavier, charged with an ancient power that defied explanation. Philip's pulse quickened as they reached the entrance to the vault. A massive door adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. Thule stepped forward, his scales glinting in the dim light as he pressed his claws against the door. For a moment nothing happened, and Philip's heart sank. But then, with a low rumble, the door began to slide open, revealing a chamber bathed in an eerie greenish glow. The source of the light was a large, crystalline structure that pulsed with a life of its own, suspended above a pedestal at the center of the room. Philip's breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight. This was the weapon, an artifact of unimaginable power. "Is this it?" Philip whispered, his voice barely audible over the low hum of the crystal. Thule nodded, his eyes never leaving the artifact. "The Temple of the Firstborn holds many secrets, but this is the one that could end the war in a single blow." Philip approached the pedestal, the air crackling with energy as he neared the artifact. He could feel the power emanating from it, the raw potential to reshape the galaxy. But with that power came a deep sense of dread. "We need to destroy it," Philip said, his voice firm. "No one should have this kind of power." Thule hesitated, his expression conflicted. "If we destroy it, we lose our only advantage. The war will drag on, and more lives will be lost. Or we could use it," came a voice from behind them. Philip and Thule whirled around to see Commander Zara standing in the doorway, her plasma rifle slung across her back. "You want to end this war, don't you?" she continued, her eyes locked on the artifact. "This is how we do it." Philip shook his head. "The cost is too high. We can't risk it." Zara's expression hardened. "You're thinking like a diplomat, Philip. This is war. There are no easy choices." Before Philip could respond, the chamber was rocked by an explosion. The walls trembled and debris rained down from the ceiling. "We're out of time," Zara said, her voice urgent. "Make a decision now." Philip's mind raced. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and there was no clear answer. He looked to Thule, who met his gaze with a look of resolve. "Do what you must, Philip," Thule said, his voice steady. "I trust you." Philip took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached out to the artifact, his hand trembling as he made contact with the cool surface. In that moment, the weight of his decision pressed down on him like a physical force. But as his fingers closed around the crystal, something changed. A surge of energy coursed through him, and he felt a connection to something vast and ancient. The knowledge of the firstborn flooded his mind, showing him the true nature of the artifact. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a key to something far greater than any of them had imagined. Philip's eyes snapped open, his decision made. "We're not using it as a weapon," he said, his voice firm. "We're unlocking its true potential." Thule and Zara exchanged a glance, but neither of them objected. They trusted Philip, and that was enough. Together they activated the artifact, and the room was filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a different place, an ethereal realm that seemed to exist outside of time and space. Before them stood the firstborn, their forms shimmering with a light that defied description. "You have unlocked the gateway," one of them spoke, its voice resonating in Philip's mind. "But with this power comes great responsibility." Philip nodded, understanding the weight of the burden he had taken on. "We seek to end the war and bring peace to the galaxy." The firstborn regarded him for a long moment before speaking again. "Very well. We shall grant you the power to do so. But be warned, this power must be used wisely, or it will consume you." Philip nodded again, feeling the weight of their words. He knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it. The light around them began to fade, and they found themselves back in the temple, the artifact now a dormant crystal in Philip's hands. "Let's get out of here," Philip said, his voice filled with determination. "We have a galaxy to save." The battle begins. As they emerged from the temple, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the ravine. The battle outside had intensified, and it was clear that their time was running out. "We need to get back to the ship," Zara said, her voice urgent. "We have to report what we've found." Thule nodded in agreement, but Philip's mind was elsewhere. The artifact in his hands was a tool of immense power, but it was also a symbol of hope. He knew that they could use it to end the war, but only if they could get it to the right people. They made their way back to the hidden landing pad, but as they approached, they were met with a grim sight. The shuttle was surrounded by enemy forces, and it was clear that they had been discovered. "We're not getting out of here without a fight," Zara said, her voice steely. Philip gripped the artifact tightly, feeling the weight of the decision he was about to make. "We don't have a choice," he said, his voice resolute. "We fight our way out." Thule and Zara nodded in agreement, and the three of them moved forward, weapons at the ready. The enemy forces opened fire as soon as they were in range, but Philip and his team were prepared. The battle was fierce, with plasma bolts sizzling through the air and explosions rocking the ground beneath their feet. But Philip fought with a determination he hadn't felt in years, driven by the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. As they pushed forward, they encountered more resistance, but they refused to back down. They fought with everything they had, their resolve unshakable. Finally, after what felt like hours of relentless combat, they reached the shuttle. Zara quickly keyed in the launch sequence, and the engines roared to life. "We're not out of the woods yet," she warned as the shuttle lifted off the ground. "We still have to get past the blockade." Philip nodded, his mind focused on the task ahead. The artifact in his hands pulsed with energy, and he knew that it was guiding them, showing them the way. As they broke through the atmosphere, the full scale of the battle became clear. The sky was filled with ships, both friendly and hostile, locked in a deadly dance of destruction. "We're almost there," Zara said, her voice tense as she navigated through the chaos. "Just a little further." But before they could reach the safety of their fleet, a massive warship appeared on the horizon, its weapons primed and ready to fire. "That's the flagship of the enemy fleet," Thule said, his voice filled with dread. "If we don't take it down, we're done for." Philip's mind raced as he considered their options. The artifact was their only hope, but using it could mean the end of everything. "We have to try," Philip said, his voice firm. "It's our only chance." Thule and Zara exchanged a glance, but neither of them objected. They trusted Philip, and that was enough. Philip focused on the artifact, feeling its energy surge through him. He could sense the presence of the firstborn, guiding him, showing him the way. With a deep breath, Philip unleashed the full power of the artifact. A beam of light shot from the shuttle, striking the enemy flagship with a force that shook the very fabric of space. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening explosion, the flagship was torn apart, its debris scattering across the battlefield. The enemy fleet, seeing the destruction of their flagship, began to retreat, their morale shattered. "We did it," Zara said, her voice filled with disbelief. Philip nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. "We need to get this artifact to the Federation," Philip said, his voice resolute. "It's the only way we can end this war for good." Thule and Zara nodded in agreement, and the shuttle sped away from the battlefield, leaving the destruction behind. A new alliance. The shuttle docked with the Federation's flagship, and Philip was immediately escorted to the bridge, where the Admiral and his staff were waiting. "You've done well, Philip," the Admiral said, his voice filled with respect. "But we need to know more about this artifact." Philip handed over the crystal, its light dim but still pulsing with energy. "It's a weapon, but it's also a key," he explained. "A key to something much bigger than any of us." The Admiral studied the artifact, his expression thoughtful. "We'll need to analyze this further, but for now, I want to thank you for your bravery. You've saved countless lives today." Philip nodded, but his mind was already on the next step. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. They needed to use the artifact to bring the enemy to the negotiating table, to force them to see reason. "We need to form a new alliance," Philip said, his voice firm. "One that includes all the major powers in the galaxy. Only then can we hope to achieve lasting peace." The Admiral nodded in agreement. "I'll start the negotiations immediately. But I want you to lead them, Philip. You're the one who's earned their trust." Philip hesitated, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. But he knew that he had no choice. The fate of the galaxy was in his hands. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. "But I'll need Thule and Zara by my side. We've been through too much together to stop now." The Admiral smiled, his respect for Philip growing. "Consider it done. Now, let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, Philip led the negotiations, bringing together representatives from all the major powers in the galaxy. It was a difficult process, filled with tension and mistrust, but Philip's determination never wavered. Finally, after countless hours of debate, they reached an agreement. The artifact would be used as a tool of peace, not war. It would be the foundation of a new alliance, one that would protect the galaxy from any future threats. As the representatives signed the treaty, Philip felt a sense of relief wash over him. The war was finally over, and peace had been achieved. But he knew that this was only the beginning. "We've done it," Thule said, his voice filled with pride. "We've finally brought peace to the galaxy." Philip nodded, his heart swelling with hope. "Yes, but now we have to make sure it lasts." Zara smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "We will, Philip. Together we can do anything." As they left the negotiation chamber, Philip looked out at the stars, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had faced impossible odds, but they had come out victorious. But as he looked at the artifact, still pulsing with energy, he knew that their work was far from over. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and there were always new threats on the horizon. But Philip was ready. He had faced the darkness and come out stronger, and now he was ready to face whatever came next. The return months passed, and the galaxy began to rebuild from the devastation of the war. The new alliance held strong, and for the first time in centuries, there was hope for lasting peace. But Philip knew that their work was far from over. The artifact still held many secrets, and he was determined to unlock them. He spent countless hours studying the crystal, trying to understand its true nature. One day, as he was deep in thought, a message came through from Thule. "Philip, I need you to come to Zaria. There's something you need to see." Philip's curiosity was piqued, and he immediately made arrangements to travel to the planet. As his shuttle descended through the atmosphere, he saw the familiar sight of the ruined temple, now a symbol of their victory. Thule was waiting for him outside the temple, his expression serious. "What's this about, Thule?" Philip asked, his brow furrowed. Thule didn't answer immediately. Instead, he led Philip into the temple, down the familiar corridors to the chamber where they had found the artifact. But this time, something was different. The chamber was filled with a soft, pulsing light. And as Philip stepped closer, he saw that the walls were covered in symbols that he recognized from the artifact. "This is what I wanted to show you," Thule said, his voice low. "The temple is alive, Philip. It's connected to the artifact, and I think it's trying to tell us something." Philip's heart raced as he studied the symbols. "What do you mean?" Thule gestured to the walls, his expression thoughtful. "I think it's a map, Philip. A map to something much bigger than we ever imagined." Philip's mind raced as he considered the implications. "Do you think it's another artifact?" Thule nodded slowly. "It's possible. But whatever it is, it's something the Firstborn wanted us to find." Philip felt a surge of excitement. They had won the war, but their journey was far from over. There were still mysteries to be uncovered, and he was determined to find the answers. "We need to follow the map," Philip said, his voice filled with determination. "We need to find out what the Firstborn were trying to tell us." Thule nodded in agreement, and the two of them set to work, deciphering the symbols and plotting a course to the next destination. As they left the temple, Philip felt a sense of anticipation building within him. The galaxy was at peace, but there were still challenges ahead, and he was ready to face them, with Thule and Zara by his side. Their journey had only just begun. The final journey, the stars stretched out before them as Philip, Thule, and Zara embarked on their final journey. The map had led them to the edge of the galaxy, to a region of space that was uncharted and unexplored. Their ship was small but fast, equipped with the latest technology from the new alliance. As they neared their destination, the tension on the bridge was palpable. "We're entering the coordinates now," Zara reported, her voice steady. "Brace for impact." The ship shuddered as it passed through a gravitational anomaly, the space around them warping and distorting. But Philip's focus was on the view screen, where a massive structure began to materialize. It was another temple, similar to the one on Zeria, but much larger. The spires of the temple reached into the void, glowing with an ethereal light. "This is it," Thule said, his voice filled with awe. "The heart of the Firstborn's power." They docked the ship and made their way inside, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The corridors of the temple were lined with intricate carvings, and the air hummed with energy. As they reached the central chamber, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. In the center of the room, suspended in a field of energy, was a massive crystal, similar to the artifact they had found on Zeria, but much larger. "This is what we were meant to find," Philip whispered, his voice filled with reverence. "The source of the Firstborn's power." Thule stepped forward, his eyes wide with wonder. "What do we do with it?" Philip considered the question carefully. The power contained within the crystal was immense, capable of reshaping the galaxy. But with that power came great responsibility. "We use it to protect the galaxy," Philip said, his voice firm. "We use it to ensure that peace is maintained, and that no one ever threatens our way of life again." Zara nodded in agreement, her expression resolute. "We've come too far to let this power fall into the wrong hands." Together, they activated the crystal, and the chamber was filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves standing before the Firstborn once again. "You have found the source of our power," the Firstborn spoke, their voices resonating in Philip's mind. "But with this power comes great responsibility." Philip nodded, his heart filled with determination. "We will use it wisely. We will protect the galaxy from those who would do it harm." The Firstborn regarded him for a long moment before speaking again. "Very well. The power is yours to wield, but remember, it must only be used in the service of peace." Philip felt a sense of resolve settle over him as the light began to fade, and they found themselves back in the temple, the crystal now a dormant artifact. As they made their way back to the ship, Philip looked out at the stars, feeling a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever felt before. They had won the war, and now they had the power to ensure that peace would last. Their journey had taken them to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, but it was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, and Philip was ready to face them. With Thule and Zara by his side, he knew that they could overcome anything. Together, they would protect the galaxy and ensure that the legacy of the Firstborn would never be forgotten. As they left the temple behind, Philip felt a sense of peace settle over him. The war was over, but their journey had only just begun. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, but with the power of the Firstborn at their side, they were ready for whatever came next. And so, they set course for the stars, ready to face the challenges of the future and to protect the peace they had fought so hard to achieve.